the 12th of May 1949, the Russians finally capitulate and the blockade is lifted. The RAF has just taken part in their first major humanitarian operation. But Russia will remain a thorn in the side of the West for decades. The end of the war brings the inevitable cutbacks. Fighter command is reduced to just 192 frontline fighters in 18 day and 6 night fighter squadrons, with 8 aircraft in each and virtually no reserves. But the RAF has entered the jet age, with uprated versions of the Gloucester Meteor and the new de Havilland Vampire.
Operational ceiling to the Meteor 4. The wing loading at normal takeoff weight is 40 pounds per square foot. Its top speed at sea level is 435 knots, and at 40,000 feet, 430 knots. Its armament and gun sight are similar to those of the Meteor 4.
The Soviet threat from Eastern Europe means that defense is once again a high priority for the RAF. The Soviets are building a fleet of long-range bombers, initially using copies of seized Boeing B-29s. It is vital that Fighter Command gets practice at breaking up large, long-range bomber formations. To this end, Meteors are sent to the United States to learn new techniques against formations of USAF B-29 bombers posing as the Soviet enemy.
Intersection should position himself outside and slightly ahead of his leader, flying about 50 feet above. He should turn in at approximately the same time as his leader and execute a similar attack, keeping approximately 800 yards behind.
With aircraft flying at greater speeds than had ever been possible before, it is becoming increasingly difficult for the pilot to bail out in an emergency. By the middle of 1949, the RAF aircraft are equipped with the Martin Baker ejector seat, which is destined to save hundreds of lives.
In the air, successful ejection tests with dummies have been repeatedly carried out.
Five years after the end of the Second World War, the world takes up arms again. This time the threat comes from the communist North Korea. Reductions in size mean that the RAF takes very little part. It does, however, spur the government to develop new aircraft. Among them is the Hawker Hunter. The Hunter enters service with number 43 Squadron in 1954. Although the early marks have problems with gun firing at altitude, these are soon ironed out. The F-6 is the best and most numerous version, being able to carry a much greater range of external stores. This version is destined to equip all RAF day fighter squadrons in Europe, as well as those of many other countries. The final element to the RAF's post-war fighter force is the all-weather Gloucester Javelin. The Javelin is the first twin-jet delta-wing fighter in the world and is designed to intercept bombers flying at high altitudes and high subsonic speeds. It is also the first of its type to carry the Firestreak air-to-air missile as standard armament. It is clear that the RAF must counter any threat from the communist bloc. With the formation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in 1949, the world is divided into two massive security pacts, NATO for the West and the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet-led umbrella for world communism. The atomic age has arrived. It is imperative that Britain has an atomic deterrent and a bomber force to deliver it. As piston-engined bombers such as the Lincoln and the Mosquito become obsolete, the RAF takes delivery of its first jet bomber, the Canberra. With the Soviet Union becoming more aggressive in Europe, 4 squadrons are deployed to Germany as light bombers, and a further 3 in the photo reconnaissance role. The Canberra is rated as a very efficient tactical bomber, with an effective radius of action between 850 and 900 miles. It does not, however, give the RAF a strategic capability. It cannot deliver that killer punch, an atomic bomb dropped over the heart of the Soviet Union. Bigger bombers are needed, bombers that can fly high and fast all the way to Russia. The first of 3 is delivered in 1955. The Vickers Valiant gives Bomber Command its first long-range atomic carrier. The following year, Britain enters the Atomic Club. First, a Valiant drops an atomic bomb at Maralinga in Australia. In 1957, the first hydrogen bomb. The second atomic bomber is delivered in 1956. The huge delta-winged Avro Vulcan, painted in anti-flash white colors, is an awesome sight. From the outset, the Vulcan is recognized as being an extremely advanced design. The first Vulcans enter squadron service in July 1957. In April the following year, the first RAF squadron receives the Handley Page Victor. The V-Force is finally complete. Although the Valiant is Britain's first nuclear bomber, its first operational role is far more conventional. In May 1956, the RAF gives up its final base in Egypt. Only 2 months later, Egyptian President Colonel Nasser announces that he has nationalized the Anglo-French-controlled Suez Canal Company. Nasser's sudden decision is because Britain and the United States refuse to finance the building of the Aswan Dam. Diplomacy fails to change Nasser's mind. The Valiants, deployed to Malta, join Canberras from Cyprus and bomb Egyptian airfields using iron 1,000-pound bombs. And it prompts a hostile reaction from America. Military operations stop until a United Nations force arrives. Despite their successes at destroying the Egyptian Air Force on the ground, the Suez experience shows that the bomber pilots need extensive training with their new aircraft. By 1964, Britain's nuclear V-Force is at its operational peak. Quick Reaction Alert, or QRA, is designed to disperse the aircraft to airfields around the UK. There the crews live either in readiness huts next to their aircraft or in the aircraft themselves. If required, over 150 Valiants, Victors and Vulcans can be scrambled from temporary airfields all over the British Isles. The aircraft can be airborne within 4 minutes. Armed with a blue steel nuclear missile, a lone aircraft has the capability to strike a mortal blow deep in the heart of Soviet Russia.